Welcome to Brainstoryum. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dreampunk and deeply weird fantasy author, and yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard, and this is episode 72 of Brainstoryum. Now, January can be a difficult month. I don't know about you, but we may be expected to express enthusiasm which we might not feel. I'm hoping that I can provide some well-earned escapism today in the form of adventures into the imagination. But first, also because it's a difficult month, I want to talk a little bit about doubt. Doubt is one of those things that never quite goes away. That niggling feeling that what you're writing might not be good enough, that no one will want to read it. But doubt and I have spent many years in each other's company, and this much I can share from long-term experience. Doubt doesn't have to be your enemy. Doubt prompts us to explore areas we're unsure of, to strive to learn more about aspects of writing where we lack confidence. When you sit down to edit something and consider whether a story is really worth developing, let alone polishing, these use our critical thinking, skills which wield doubt like a mental weapon. This skill set is as vital to us as authors as pure creativity, the inspiration-led brainstorming that blossoms through wonder and free exploration. Ultimately, the two things must work in balance, like so many things in life. Being an author involves flipping between the two sides of this same coin of writing when the time is right. At any moment while you're brainstorming, you might suddenly ask, is the plot tight enough? Do the characters really draw me in? Where am I going with this story? These are useful questions, and naturally they are born on a wave of doubt. Don't stand in front of the wave of doubt and let it crash over you. Get on the boat and ride it. See where it takes you. With a novel, the sea is much bigger, choppier, and the waves can come at you from all angles, suggesting endless possible directions. There are structural challenges in novel writing that just don't feature in shorter pieces. It helps to work with doubt and critical thinking in small steps, rather than risk being overwhelmed by this ocean, or so it might seem. But the magic of short stories is that they are a learning space all of their own as well, a space of playful thinking, expansive exploration. And what we don't and perhaps cannot learn, even through critical thinking, we can learn intuitively through the practice of just writing and even just imagining. On that note, come with me on this journey of story brainstorming, and let's see what we can learn through the practice of imagining. But before we get going with the new writing prompts, my talented listeners have responded with some ideas based on a word combination from the last show, the tremulous gargoyle. Edjo Erin said, a story about the gargoyle, let's call him Gregory, of the Duomo of Milan, whose acrophobia reached epic proportions when he was elevated to one of the uppermost spires, hence the trembling. A gargoyle with a fear of heights? Why, oh why did I not think of that? That's brilliant. There's a lot you could do with this, and it feels unexpected. Thank you, Edge. Nick Varekar said, Tim didn't much like the old church. It was a stone edifice built with tall, thin spires and onyx obelisks. But what frightened him the most were the stone gargoyles. Their eyes wide, their mouths gaping. On windswept nights they grew, but they always stared into him. Ooh, that's so atmospheric. I love the description, which really sets the scene. In a way, the stillness of the gargoyles and their hypnotic stares is as disturbing as the idea of them actually moving. Thank you, Nick. Eric Montgomery said, a trembling gargoyle, cursed for centuries, isn't afraid of demons. It's pigeons. When the truth is uncovered, a slapstick rooftop battle unfolds against the feathered menace, proving that sometimes bravery is just surviving the ridiculous. This is amazing. A bit of comedy, much needed for our times. Thank you, Eric. And yes, I really would like it if you wrote this. And finally, Charles Moffat said, replace tremulous with vengeful. There's actually two gargoyles in the story. An evil gargoyle driven by pride, arrogance, greed, territoriality, and bloodlust who kills other gargoyles. And a morally grey gargoyle driven by a thirst for justice. Add a human who falls in love with a gargoyle, similar to Beauty and the Beast, a magical curse that makes the gargoyles turn to stone at night, and a few extra subplots. Voila. Wow, lots to think about. It feels like a really vivid comic book, and you could fill volumes with these ideas. I love it. Thank you for sharing your ideas, Charles. Now, let us see what new adventures await for us in The Socks of Destiny. That's right, and for those who haven't played or listened before, Exquisite Corpse mixes words and phrases from different players to create a bizarre sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. And so it is with a little trepidation, as always, and excitement that I reach into the describing word sock for my first word, which is from Delta D. Fearsome. Okay, so we have a fearsome character or object to begin our story with. The noun to which this belongs is from Paul Thomas. Ha-ha. Now I had to look this up. I did not know what is a ha-ha. It is a sunken fence to stop animals. Okay. Our next word, well, actually, this is likely a phrase because this is from the action sock. This is from Rebecca Gleisner. Was stranded in space by. Ooh. A fence stranded in space. This is very strange. An actual fence or some other kind of a more abstract form of fence. Our next word is from Paul Thomas again. Modest. Stranded in space by something or someone who is modest. Final word is from Chris Machel. Propagandist. Okay, this is very strange. This is a very strange beginning. The fearsome ha-ha, or sunken fence, was stranded in space by the modest propagandist. Ooh, this fearsome fence, it makes me think about what if the animals you're keeping out are a lot scarier than just rabbits who are trying to burrow their way through into your vegetable patch, or foxes or whatever. What if there is an infestation of alien creatures on Earth, intergalactic monsters, predators who, while they're on Earth, can only survive underground, but they can burrow. Many people don't believe in them yet, but others who do lie awake at night, listening out for the sound of distant scrabbling from deep under their garden. Many of these people have paved over their gardens, believing they can deter the creatures from digging into their houses' foundations. But does this work? The modest propagandist is reading her paper, sniffing at the so-called news. At least they put her article on the front page, "Do not fear intergalactic invasions," with a photo of her next to it, wearing her thicker-rimmed glasses in an attempt to look substantial. 11 paragraphs summing up the outlandish silliness of the latest panic around these so-called burrowers who made their way into your house by clawing their way through wood, brickwork, even concrete, if some of these stories were to be believed. No one liked the idea of some unknown creature nibbling into the foundations of your house under the ground. Really, people had the craziest imaginations these days, and the fence building companies were making an absolute packet from it all with their new reinforced metal designs. Unfortunately, the same paper had also chosen to publish yet another panic-inducing article directly above hers. She huffed and took a swig of her coffee and froze with her mug halfway down to the breakfast table. What was that nibbling sound? Her heart thumped twice like a heavy knock on the door of her sanity. Oh, for goodness sake, it was just her niece's pet hamster she'd agreed to look after while her sister's family went on holiday. Okay, so what next? I'm hesitating over the middle part of the Exquisite Corpse. How did the fearsome Ha-Ha come to be stranded in space by the modest propagandist? Does our incredulous journalist unintentionally set off a series of events that lead to a Ha-Ha, one of these specialist fences made of metal, to become stranded in space? How could that happen? I wonder. What if one of the fence manufacturing companies is angered by her article and they get in touch with her? They challenge her to come and inspect some of the evidence they found of claw marks gashing the metal prongs. Or they take her to a site where an actual attack has apparently occurred, showing her evidence of where an alien has made it into somebody's house. But nothing convinces her, and all the videos and photos she's seen on social media, even on the news, she believes are faked. But thinking about creature stories, whether you're imagining aliens, genetically mutated animals, monsters, myths come alive, to me, the fascinating part, the part that keeps me reading eagerly, is not knowing everything about that creature. There's an element of a puzzle to be solved, and that alone can keep us reading. What can this creature do, and what limitations might it have? For surely this is what your protagonist, once she or he comes to believe in their existence after all, will be after. This is the knowledge that they want once they realise the threat is real. And the learning curve for the human characters who are trying to understand these monsters, possibly hunt them, or maybe just find a way to keep them out, makes for gripping storytelling. Always, the element of the unknown creates opportunities for exploring, for frightening encounters where you don't quite see everything, for scenes where the protagonist tests their courage and determination, maybe even tests who they really are as a person deep down. And this unknown element generally helps us feel anxiety for the protagonist, which is a great page-turner in any case. So consider your monsters or your creatures with care. How can they surprise you? How can they surprise your readers? And what strengths and weaknesses might these creatures have? How might these aspects be discovered? And how did a journalist somehow cause them to be stranded in space? Well, for now, that remains a mystery even to me. But hey, a mystery is what keeps us hooked, right? I guess that's my excuse. I think it's time for another Exquisite Corpse. Let's see what else we might find. Okay, so first word is from Paul Thomas. Perceptive. Okay, something or someone is very perceptive in some way, whether that's psychologically or they have maybe special abilities. The next word is from Alessandro Bozzo. Zephyr. Okay, so that means a soft, gentle breeze. How could you have a perceptive zephyr? Okay, let's just keep going, not worry too much about it. What is the action? This is from Mariah. Complained about. So a breeze is complaining about someone or something. This is very weird. I'm going to have to be very creative with this one. But that's all good. Next word is from Sean, also known as Blue Wizard Facts. Kind. Complaining about someone who is kind. Final word to seal the fate of this Exquisite Corpse. This is from Mariah again. Actor. Okay, I will read the entire Exquisite Corpse, but it may be time for some green tea because this looks tricky. So the perceptive zephyr or gentle breeze complained about the kind actor. Oh, my brain is hurting. It is definitely time for a little refreshment. Let's give this a stir. Okay. Right. The perceptive zephyr complained about the kind actor. Do you know, when I first read this, for some reason, there was a split second where I thought the first noun was Zeppelin, not Zephyr. I guess they both begin with Z-E-P. And a Zeppelin is easier to picture than a Zephyr, being a solid, tangible thing. I guess they're both in the air, or, well, one is a kind of air and the other is buoyant. I mean, but maybe I should go with this, because one interpretation I could use is that a Zeppelin could be called the Zephyr if it travels softly and quietly. And to make it the perceptive Zephyr, it could be conscious, like the TARDIS in Doctor Who, which is also a kind of conscious vehicle. I do like the idea of a vehicle of some kind which has opinions and may be perceptive, or who complains a lot. I don't know. It's interesting, but I want to know why and in what ways the Zeppelin is perceptive. If you have the magic or the mechanics to make a Zeppelin that's conscious and perceptive, why have you done that? For what purpose? And what can this Zeppelin perceive? Are you an adventurer and this airship can perceive portals into other worlds? You could track your way into who knows where, and quietly on the gentle zephyr. If you're on the run, equally good, and for the sake of a story, this is a strong, urgent motivation for the main character, a great way to hook the reader, although this would be an odd choice of getaway vehicle because I think it's a lot slower than planes or possibly even helicopters. Unless this Zeppelin can make itself invisible as well, with the use of, I don't know, mirrored projections of the sky along its side. Even so, it would cast a silent shadow creeping over the ground, a whale shape sliding over the surface of a lake, too exact to be a real whale. Its hard outline shudders over the ripples of the water. But how does the kind actor come into this? Because the perceptive Zephyr complained about the kind actor. At first glance, this seems like it might be a clash of perspectives. A kind person is probably annoying from the Zeppelin's point of view. If the traveller, the human character, is a kind person who also happens to be an actor, then this could just be exactly that, a clash of personalities. He buys the Zeppelin, maybe he's on the run, or he just has outlandish quantities of cash and needs to get away from it all. But the Zeppelin turns out to have a bit of a strong personality, and the two wind each other up on their journeys. This could be a foundation for working out both characters without having yet decided where they're going and why. And the story could sprout from who the characters are, which is actually a great method because then you know for sure that plot and character are intimately entwined. You could even write it from the point of view of the Zeppelin. I'm getting a flashback of Knight Rider from the 80s. Does anyone remember that? A talking car? But I think they got along, the driver and the car, with a little bit of gentle sarcasm along the way. Am I right? Another way of building in a kind actor whom the Zeppelin complains about. What about going back to the possible purposes of a perceptive Zeppelin? Another idea would be if the perceptive Zeppelin can sniff out, detect in some way, missing people or criminals who are on the run or in hiding. That's probably more interesting for a story. And an actor deliberately confuses a particular search by pretending to be the criminal they're looking for to allow the real one to escape. That would have to be a very well-paid job. And the actor, when the police catch up with him and are ready to make the arrest, only to discover that he's not the real guy, he'd have to convince them that this wasn't a deliberate attempt to send them on a wild goose chase, and that yes, his moustache has always been like that, and it was all a coincidence that he happens to be wearing similar clothes to a wanted criminal while going for a nice walk in the mountains at the same time the police were hunting down the real guy in that very area. Just in the wrong place at the wrong time, he says, opening his hands in a shrug. Meanwhile, the real criminal escapes through a secret network of tunnels deep within the mountains. That's definitely a good reason why the perceptive Zephyr might complain about the kind actor. But is he kind, really? I suppose that depends on the fee he accepted from the criminal to do this dastardly deed. What if he did it in exchange for something other than cash? And that way there'd be no suspicious wad of cash on him when the police catch up. What could that favour be? Could this turn into a whole other story that stems from this cashless exchange? Maybe it's to do with those secret tunnels in the mountains. Okay, let's try for another Exquisite Corpse. Our first word is from. Paul Benfield. Hazy. Makes me think of something that's blurry edged or difficult to make out. But then again, it could be a perceptive thing. Ooh, like something from the Perceptive Zephyr. Next word is from Alessandro Bozzo. Revolution. That is very strange. I'm just going to keep going because who knows what's coming next and how that might define what has come before. The action is from Mariah. Threw a pillow at. A revolution. Throwing a pillow? Mind you, that sounds like a less than scary riot, I guess. The next word is from Storky. Gelatinous. Okay. This is very peculiar. Gelatinous. Something squidgy. That's not going to end well if you throw a pillow at it. Final word is from Sean, also known as Blue Wizard Facts. Hare, as in H-A-R-E. The rabbit on steroids. Okay, so this is getting stranger and stranger. We have altogether the hazy revolution threw a pillow at the gelatinous hare. Blimey. Well, let's just begin with the hazy revolution. This is weird enough on its own. It's making me think broader. Like, is it a revolution where people aren't really sure that the revolution's going on? They have a vague idea that there's some kind of political unrest or political change, but it's so subtle that they're hardly aware of it. They're hazy about it. It sounds strange, but then again, cultures do change and evolve over time. And it's one of those things when you're a little bit older that you can more easily do to look back over the way culture has changed in your lifetime and really notice the differences that have evolved right under your nose, but so slowly, so incrementally, that there isn't a single event that you can pin it on, or one single public person that you could necessarily blame it on. If, for example, a leader comes into power who is previously unthinkable as a leader, what has happened in society over however many years to make it not just thinkable, but desirable to enough people to actually put them there? Just saying. Is that a hazy revolution? But then, coming back to the Exquisite Corpse, how or why would the hazy revolution throw a pillow at the gelatinous hare? Gelatinous hare makes me think of how, for kids' parties, you can make a jelly set in a particular shape. I'm saying jelly, but for those living west of me, you'll be thinking jello. That's what I mean. It's just a difference. I'm sure I've come across jelly or jello set into a rabbit shape. So why not a hare? It's just a muscular-looking version of the same animal at first glance. And when moulded into jello, who can really say whether it's a rabbit or a hare? So then, anyone throwing a pillow at a gelatinous hare sounds like a tantrum at a children's party. A hazy revolution throwing a pillow at a hare-shaped pudding. Total chaos. Or is it? Because the revolution is hazy. This, the more I say it, the more I think about it, it sounds more like someone who's drunk or exhausted. And it's leading me to think about the parents of the children at these parties. What if the parents have a tantrum at a children's party? Now that sounds interesting, different. After a long afternoon trying to keep up the happy, jolly pretense of hosting a children's party, finally, Dad snaps when the children won't stop running around and screaming. Maybe it's Dad's turn to start running around screaming. Although I keep coming back to this word hazy, which feels calmer and more bewildered than that, less related to running around and screaming. Maybe I need to bring the noise of the party down a bit. There's something more subtle going on here. He could handle the kids running around and shouting. For a bit. It meant they'd sleep well tonight. His daughter, Vanessa, would feel like she was more thoroughly 6 years old today. And when the other parents turned up in a couple of hours' time, she would easily drift off in front of The Lion King, her favourite movie. The trick was to deal with the high energy in stages. After lunch and the long-awaited circus, the children streaked around the local park for a while, waving the sticks left over from their candy floss and playing a version of tag, which involved made-up rules about some clown monster. He couldn't pick up exactly what. They pointed their candy floss sticks at each other like wands, and that's how they were it. Then it was time for home and jelly and ice cream. Reduced sugar versions. He wasn't making that mistake again. Pass the parcel was the next rung down the energy ladder. After that was the bottom rung. He convinced them to play statues, then sleeping lions, both games directing all their focus on keeping still and quiet, until the stillness and the quietness were a tangible softness enveloping the air of the crumb and wrapping paper strewn lounge. Dad sighed and leaned back on the sofa, listening to the paper-soft breathing from the girls where they lay on the carpet. Without looking, he murmured, "You're all excellent lions," and closed his eyes, just for a moment. The room began to spin. It was a dream, surely. The lounge seemed like the inside of a giant washing machine where the detritus of the day churned around in pass-the-parcel circles. Hadn't the girls run in circles in the park? Hazily, Dad wondered if they'd brought those circles home with them, a heady swoop of rushing in a wide curve. And then there was Pass the Parcel. All these circles. What a fool he was. He squeezed his fingertips into the arm of the sofa, desperately trying to wake up. He couldn't just doze off like this. The children, were they okay? Just thinking about them lying there, curled up, vulnerable, made him dizzy. As the strips of torn wrapping paper rose up and whirled over the sleeping lions, Dad's head spun along with it, giddy. Those candy floss sticks, the way the seller held the thin wooden rod against the side of the spinning tub so that the pink stuff clumped and gathered around it. That's what he was doing, holding still against the spin. He was making it happen. But how could he stop? A party was a spinning thing. Everything about it ran in circles. He'd done an unnatural thing by letting the kids stay still, curled up on the carpet, so now the room spun against them, and they were the sticks held against the blustering candy floss that would twirl and churn around them. Stripes flashed past, faster and faster, red and white, like the stripes on the circus marquee. He jolted awake to an almighty crash. The children sat up, blinking, unharmed but bewildered. At the table, laid out with their party food, was a cushion splattered with jelly, its corner dug into the middle of the rabbit shape. Or was it a hair? It was so muscular looking. The TV remote was wedged into the birthday cake like a knife. Strips of wrapping paper lay scattered as after an explosion. A flare of vivid pink in the corner of Dad's vision. The moment he glanced round, it was gone. I'll stop there. Where on earth is this going? Is this something to do with the circus or circus magic and the game of tag which the kids played in the park? They've accidentally brought home with them this scary spinning energy that also has something to do with candy floss, maybe. Now, evil clowns are a well-used trope, so I would tread carefully and try to find something different here. I'm not really a horror writer either, so personally I would want to steer clear of the image of a clown wielding an axe or something like that, because that's been done before, a lot. What's more intriguing to me is to stumble into something unexpected here. The spinning part, the cyclical quality of what's going on, is the most likely aspect to focus on in my view, and what comes from that instead. What I think happened partway through writing this was I realised that revolution can also mean a revolving motion, something turning around or rolling. And now I think about it, I seem to remember that circus actually comes from the word circle, because the stage and the whole setup of an original circus is based around a circular design. So I can see how my unconscious mind came up with a circus theme based on this interpretation of revolution, and also, trying to connect to a children's party, what you might do. Intriguing. In fact, I realised, having pressed the pause button along the way, I did mention The Lion King early on in the story. Wasn't there a song called The Circle of Life in that film? I mean, come on. It's like my brain has gone mad for circles in the middle of this, all because of the word revolution. Actually, there was a circus in the last show, but that was focused around a trapeze artist and was maybe less intimidating as a situation. Here we might meet candy floss ghosts that prey on children's parties, or dads. It's weird, now I look back over it, I didn't want to give him a proper name. I wanted to keep calling him Dad, because there's something a bit claustrophobic about that. Maybe that's one of the triggers of this, of his own personal nightmare that's happening to him, that he's somehow lost touch with who he was before he became a father, because he's been so dedicated to being a father, it's just kind of taken over his life. And then this story might take him on a journey that highlights that loss or that imbalance and prompts him to confront that and to get back that part of himself that he lost. I like that. Always the psychology of a plot interweaving action and character. It just kind of deepens whatever happens. And in my mind, personally, I mean, I'm not a horror fan, as you know, but to me, that is so much more engaging than just someone throwing in front of me this image of an axe-wielding clown. It's just, it's going to be a story that satisfies. It does also remind me of an Exquisite Corpse from some years ago, pre-Brainstoryum, where it was just a game with friends. Someone, I didn't want to point it out to them at the time, but I gleefully noticed that they misspelled the word desert. They clearly meant to say desert from the phrase they used, but they wrote dessert. And so the Exquisite Corpse, I did not point this out at the time. I just felt, I don't know, I didn't want to offend them. I didn't know them that well. But it meant the final Exquisite Corpse was the monstrous father crossed the desert to find the whiskey-soaked hermit. Crossing a desert? So much harder, I imagine, than crossing a desert, which is clearly what they meant. Well, the whiskey-soaked hermit, this monstrous father would cross the desert for, would surely have to be some whiskey-laced finger biscuit you might find lining the bottom of some kind of trifle. This would be a very trippy journey if you took it literally and turned that into a story. That wouldn't necessarily put me off trying, as you know. But it's made me think fathers, desserts. My last published collection was Portals and Immortals. Might my next one be Epiphanies and Puddings? Maybe a little bit too bizarre and too specific. I think my next book will probably be themed around weird creatures, as these seem to arise of their own accord from the strange word mixings of Exquisite Corpse and the weird things that lurk in my imagination. On that note, if you do think of a story idea based on any of the word combinations from this show, please do share with me. You know where to find me at annatizard.com. Perhaps I would prompt you on the perceptive zephyr, or the fearsome ha-ha, a fearsome fence. What could that mean? You don't necessarily have to cause it to be stranded in space. Until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstoryum. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.